Born in Syracuse, New York, and received his BA from Syracuse University. He also received a master's in clinical psychology to aid in his volunteer work. Delegate George owns and operates Ron George Jewelers, and he also started a nonprofit family counseling center in Crownsville, Maryland. So, without further ado, you've got 2 minutes, sir. It's on.
Good evening. How are you? I want to thank everybody for putting this together. This is awesome. This morning we had a tech council forum, and it was very boring. I kind of like this. The interaction with all of you, it's pretty good. You'll find I'm a different kind of Republican. I want to build a new Maryland. I see us very divided. The rural areas, the cities, the answers for each area is different. If you want to build one Maryland, you have to address the answers, the situations in each part of the state. We have parts of Baltimore that are hurting, and hurting deeply. From my counseling work in the inner cities with runaways push-outs, and I did that for a number of years, I get it. I understand what's going on in the inner city. I'm proposing things in education, such as Baltimore Children's Zones, modeled after the Harlem Children's Zones. It gets attitudes and test scores up. It works. I can't stand sitting by idly and seeing people suffer. I want to give them hope, true hope. And there are ways to do that. I think our government in this state is failing us in many ways. And I'll get into some of those ways, I think, in some of my answers. We need to bring manufacturing back to Maryland. We're ranked 50th out of 50 states. We need entry-level, mid-level jobs. The import-export businesses, things of that sort. I have a business background, an economics and finance background, besides the counseling. So I get it. I know how to do that, and I've worked on those issues before. I showed how the boating industry was suffering in our state. From manufacturing to the boat repairs to the detailing, all the way down it was hurting. By putting a cap on the boat excise tax, all of a sudden it starts coming back because people are registering their boats here again. And so it brings back jobs. So it is a little harder to explain to people it doesn't matter of just taxing more. There are ways to create more revenue for your state so you can afford the programs. I'm a Republican who happens to believe there is a big role for government, and that is mainly a safety net for people and to help them, but to empower them and to help them get along. And that's very important to me from my work and my volunteer work of what I've done. I have a business background. Dan Rodericks on WYPR interviewed me, and at the end he said, you know what? You don't just concentrate on issues Republicans concentrate on. You concentrate on issues that are important to Democrats too, but you offer a different set of ideas that's not always government being the answer. And that's true, and I think you'll find that's true about me. And I look forward to sharing that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, we'd like to jump right into the issues, and we'd like to look at your platform and some of the tenets that you've put out. You mentioned on your website that you'd like to grow the tax base in Baltimore, and in so doing, allow other jurisdictions to keep their money home for infrastructure and education needs. But what we'd like to know is, how do you intend to increase that tax base in Baltimore?
I would separate the two parts, the first part of your statement, into two parts. I want to grow the tax base in Baltimore, but to get the other jurisdictions to understand that's important. When I tell them if we build a tax base in Baltimore, you'll be able to keep more of your money home, then suddenly they're for it. I want to get all the state behind us, because my economic plan is central to rebuilding Baltimore and building a tax base here. The manufacturing, as I said, Baltimore has lost it. We are ranked 50th out of all 50 states. New manufacturing firms, the tax on it is actually 31.9% on your business, and then you have another tax on the equipment, which is higher than anyone else in the country. It's 4 times higher than the national average, so we're not getting those businesses here. Why do we have that high a tax if it's not going to help us create jobs? It's all about creating jobs. I can attract those businesses. You make up the money back up by lowering those taxes. You make it back up through the payroll taxes and everything else. And we can do that, and we can attract them here. How can we get people off of welfare? How can we help people provide for their families if we don't have these entry-level, mid-level jobs? And it's very important to do. People talk about how many jobs the expanded harbor is going to bring, and they talk about the building of the harbor, but no one's talking about attracting import-export businesses and having those holding areas, and that's important too. Of course, I'm very big on the tech industry, which is why I did well at the debate this morning, because I helped that industry with some bills and things that I did, including I led the repeal of the tech service tax, because that was killing that part of that industry. And so there are ways. I convinced my committee with the Ways and Means Committee, I've been on it for 8 years, how that would increase revenue for the state, and it did. So it might be boring to talk about the economy, but it seems to be the #1 issue on everyone's mind. And I don't hear that. I don't hear that from some of the other candidates. We've gone this long, and I don't see the answers for creating jobs, and it's important. We cannot get to providing programs, providing for people, helping people, doing the roads, doing the infrastructure, if we're shrinking the private sector tax base. In the first 6 years, the O'Malley Brown administration shrunk the private sector tax base by 93,000 jobs, but they increased government jobs by 26,000. Otherwise, you would have seen how bad unemployment really is. How are you going to pay for those government jobs? You know, if you're shrinking the private sector, you can't do that. There are ways to grow it. Business is not based on greed like people think. I'm a small business owner. It's because I wanted to care for my family. I'm married. I have 6 kids. Just had my 5th grandbaby last night. I didn't do anything for it, but a granddaughter. Her name's Amelia, and very proud of her, very proud of my kids. And they work hard. My sons want to help in the business. The only reason I was able to run for office and to be serving is because of my sons and my other employees. We're all like one big family. And I want to provide for those families. I have employees that have important needs. And, you know, I have less to work with because of the high tax rates. I have okay.
I'm sorry, we're coming up on 2 minutes here.
Coming up on it?
When he waves that paper, that's when it happens.
I'm done.
Thank you. I actually very much appreciate that.
Thank you.
But I'd like to hone the focus of your answer a bit. You mentioned all of these ways that business can be grown in Baltimore.
Yes,
one of my friends was telling me the other day that Baltimore actually doesn't have a Fortune 500 company. It hasn't for a couple years now. The last one was bought by a Chicago company and relocated there. So what I'd like to do is ask whether you have any intentions of bringing a Fortune 500 level company to Baltimore, and if you were going to do something like that, what would your incentives look like?
Well, the incentive has to be to compete with the other states around us in order to attract those businesses. And then having that business here helps to make up with the lost revenue of giving them those tax breaks or those cuts. It's true. We used to have, you know, I think it was 14 Fortune 500 companies.
Yes, sir.
And then we're down to 3, 2. The fact of the matter is that these are big companies, but at least allowing them to get their headquarters here gives us a lot of tax revenue. So you make it back up. I believe that there are ways to attract businesses. I talk about small businesses mainly because that's the ones people are forgetting about. But as you become business friendly, you have to do things also to attract the big companies. And Baltimore City, unlike any other urban center in this country, has been going the wrong direction, but so have the smaller cities, the mid-level size cities, Hagerstown, Salisbury, Cambridge. You know, they're hurting. Cumberland. Now you look at them, they're empty inside. People aren't wanting to live there. And we can change that. We can bring them back. They used to do a lot of manufacturing in those places. Baltimore City, the big manufacturing firms, the Fortune 500s, can be attracted back here. You'll see a turnaround. Now, remember, I'm talking about creating entry-level and mid-level jobs. I'm not talking about displacing people. Baltimore City right now talks about, oh, we've got home sales back. They're tearing down areas and building these expensive condominiums, but you've displaced people. What are you going to do for them? You know, we have to have those entry-level and mid-level jobs. People have to be able to provide for their families. And that's part of the hardest part of our economy. It isn't just the Fortune 500s. You can do that. You can do that in an easy way. And if they agree to come here and people know they're coming here, you can change that tax formula. But you also have to have those entry-level, mid-level, and you have to allow for the small businesses. Prince George's County right now is now ranked 24th out of all jurisdictions in education. It's below Baltimore now. Every jurisdiction, including Baltimore, their home sales are up. Prince George's, it's half of what it was last year. No one's paying attention to that. That's a tremendous danger. If what happens to Prince George's is what was happening to big parts of Baltimore, we've got a huge problem. So we've got to answer that, and we've got to get these companies back.
Now, I'd like to tie this economic issue back to education. Now, we've talked a lot about taxes thus far, and you have led the fight in the legislature to keep tax increases down in Maryland. Presumably, if you continue that fight as governor, there's going to be less funding for graduate and undergraduate education here in the state. So what we'd like to do is to ask, how do you propose keeping higher education affordable without gradual tax increases to match that increase that we expect in our education bills?
You know, it's a fair question, but it's based on a premise that isn't being found to be true. A lot of the states who did lower tax rates are actually having job growth, and that's creating more revenue for those states, and they've gotten surpluses. It's happening all across the country. It's not happening in Maryland. We went the other direction. We raised taxes when the economy went bad. It put that much more of a drag on every business. You were trying to help people by doing that, but it had the reverse effect. I'm only going to lower taxes in ways that are going to create new jobs. I'm not just going to lower taxes for the sake of lowering taxes, but I want these businesses to be able to be competitive. So we make up the revenue, and we'll only lower those taxes if we know where it's going to help increase those the revenue for the cities, for the state itself. And I really, look, higher education is very important to me. and I want everybody that has a dream to go for it to be able to go for it. I'm not looking to make it more expensive at all. I think becoming more competitive and people starting to get that money to do that, getting that income in there, creating that revenue in the state will help us to keep that low.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, another tenet of your platform has been an emphasis on incorporating rehabilitation centers for drug and alcohol abuse and addiction into prison facilities. Well, what we'd like to know is how can you ensure that these facilities are going to have their intended effect, given how prevalent controlled substance trafficking is in our prison system?
That's a good question. I treat that fairly, but I had the RSAT, Residential Substance Abuse Treatment Program bill in 2008. I had it again in 2009. And what it does, it creates treatment programs within the prison system. Now, it isn't just residential substance abuse treatment, because what you're doing is you separate the prison population that have the drug problem. Okay? They're separated from the rest because that's holding back everyone else, and you have to treat them differently. Okay? And you have to work on them differently. RSAT programs have worked around the country, and they've been worked. My background in psychology understands the need that everyone's afraid, that their child goes to prison, they're going to come out worse. That's the way our prisons are. They're not rehabilitory. We need to get that recidivism rate down. We need to have these young men and women come out and be active in the community and understand. So it helps them not only with a drug, but to get their GEDs. It follows them afterwards as they get acclimated into society, and helps them to do that. It's found to be something that really works. The problem in Maryland is that both of my bills got a lot of resistance from places like the Baltimore prison system. We now know why. There were prisoners running the prison system in many ways. They need to be rehabilitory. I think it's ridiculous that people act like everyone's in there for life. They're going to come back out. You want them to come back out worse than when they were in there? There are ways, and these things work. And by the way, there's federal grant money for it, so it's not going to cost the state that much. Thank you.
Now, I do have a brief follow-up about that. What happens to these inmates when they're in prison is certainly a big part of the person they are when they come out, but they do face a lot of barriers once they try and re-enter society. There's barriers to employment. They have to disclose any crimes that they've had. Oftentimes they have low levels of education or just not a lot of job experience. Sometimes they re-enter the communities that push them to these crimes to begin with. So could you talk about how you can rehabilitate these individuals, not just within the system, but once they try and exit it?
Well, that's what the RSAT program does. It does follow them back out into the prison system. That's a big, important part of it. Helps them to get reacclimated, helps them with the jobs, and helps them get in there. There are many businesses ready to hire them, and I think most of us, and I know myself in my own business, I want to give someone a chance, and I do. I caught a young man who was stealing gold from my jewelry store and stashing it in the back room. His wife was expecting twins, and I sat him down and I said, I won't say his name, but I said, "What are you doing?" He worked with me for another couple of years. We had a good relationship, until he moved out of state, which was fine. But I want to help people. I want people to be able to make it. And, I think it's important to be able, I think it's important for the employers to know the background of their employees. I want to know. They're doing a thing now where they're expunging records. If somebody's been caught, they've been stealing several times, they think it'll help them get the job if they just expunge the record. As an employer, I want to know. I want to know. I'll still probably hire him, but I want to be able to help him, and I want to know. And I think that's important to do. But there are many businesses out there ready to accept these guys and take them back. And actually, in the manufacturing field, that is one way that it can acclimate people back into it. We used to do that in this Baltimore area. We used to do that, take the prisoners, and there was a certain amount that would be hired by Bethlehem Steel and some of these places to help them get acclimated back in. And we don't even have those jobs there anymore. But it can be done.
Thank you. Now, as you know, because you've been kindly sitting in the second row of the audience for the whole show, we have asked everybody thus far about the fracking issue here in Maryland, and that's been an issue that seems to divide fairly cleanly across the red and the blue line that we have here. So what I'd like you to do is speak to some of the environmental and health concerns that many Marylanders have over fracking, and tell us what the Commission would have to come back with in order to make you withdraw support of fracking in this state.
You say fracking much nicer than people on the floor who don't like it. It sounds like a dirty word the way it's said on the floor.
Yes, sir.
Listen, what happened, the first couple of years it was thought about, I voted against the natural gas drilling because I wanted to be sure, and we wanted to study it. And we studied it, and we studied it. And in those studies that I received from around the country and from many experts on both sides of the issue is that the rush to do it in some of these other states was unbelievable. Once the decision was there, they didn't have proper oversight. People got into the aquifer, it wasn't done right. In Pennsylvania, it was horrible. Got into well water the way they did it. That's not the way it's supposed to be done. There is a safe way to do it, and we will make sure it's done the safe way. Now, I understand you mentioned about a commission, and Heather serves on that commission. I think the commission is a little towards one side. I want to make sure it's safe, though. I really do. So I've been studying the science of it. I come from the Anne Arundel County. It's very, very heavily environmental is important. I came in first in my district, which is the Speaker of the House is in my district.
Yes.
And I came in way over him in first place. Why? Because I have a good environmental background. I've helped to get environmental things through wind turbines at Greenberry Point. There's a grid in place that Navy's going to move ahead with that. Different things that I've done to be able to get through energy net metering and things like that help Crisfield and poor areas start getting into renewable energies. As a Republican, okay, I am known as being fiscally conservative, okay? I don't like waste, but I'm also solution-oriented. And that's part of what Dan Rodericks was saying, is that I find solutions for things. So some Republicans don't think environment's important. I think it is. And I want to make sure it's done right. Absolutely that it's done right. Or we don't go ahead. But at the same time, there is a right way to do it. And we need to make sure it's done that way. It will create a lot of jobs, and it will be safe. It's been proven to be safe in many places. But these areas where we talk about, like Pennsylvania, that was horrible. They just rushed into it, and there was no oversight. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, in the Ways and Means Committee, you voted against the Senate's proposal to let film companies receive up to $18.5 million in tax credits for filming in the state. Now, they already get a tax credit, but that would be an increase from what they get now. But at the same time, you've also expressed a concern about the flight of businesses from Maryland. So what we'd like to know is, how can you keep high-profile businesses coming to Maryland? I had a House of Cards joke I wanted to do here, but my fellow organizers cut that. So how can we keep those high-profile businesses here without advancing them those kind of tax credits that make us competitive with other states?
Well, let me back up a little bit, because in my bio there's a couple things you didn't know. My family goes back to the late 1600s here on the eastern coast, okay? I was born in Syracuse. I was number 5 out of 8 kids, but my parents were visiting and I came early, okay? I ended up going back to Syracuse to work because they didn't have any jewelers in the area, so I went to a trade school to learn it, and I paid my way through school, right? So, the question was?
Well, so we need to extend these tax incentives,
I understand.
Presumably.
So in New York, and I graduated from Syracuse University, and I go to New York and I started acting in a soap opera called The Doctors. And it got canceled eventually, but I got to die once and come back a couple of months later as a different character, so it's okay. I am a member of the Screen Actors Guild, and the film industry comes to me on Ways and Means to talk about this issue. Now, I supported it the first year and the second year. Now, here's the thing with tax credits. Tax credits cannot be the government picking the winners and losers. A tax credit should be for the whole industry and let them compete with each other. The way this last bill was designed, it helped 2 companies, and only 2. It wasn't for the whole film industry, and it was favoring them. And the actors, thinking that they were going to get this tax credit, suddenly got a $5 million raise, and you're paying for that. And that's not right. That's not the way it's supposed to work. I'd like to get the film industry back to Baltimore. As far as this other part of your question, I'm worried about the flight of businesses from here. One reason they're leaving is it's not fair. It seems to be who you know, what campaigns you're willing to contribute to in order to get favors for your company. We're not supposed to be favoring one company over the other. That's not the role of government. Competition is a good thing. One of the best regulators of pricing and quality is competition. And I don't think that's fair for us to decide to give $25 million to one company, but we're not going to give it to anyone else who wants to film here.
I think Frank Underwood would be proud. Well done. Now, the only way to follow up a Frank Underwood comment is with a political question. Okay. Many political commentators have suggested that in order to survive, the Republican Party in the state needs to appeal to some new voters that don't traditionally fall within that tent. Minorities, women voters, the LGBT movement. So what we'd like to do is to ask, how do you intend, as the face of this party, if you win the election, to bring those people into the tent?
I think people need to know that, I really believe in the golden rule. I believe treating everybody with respect. I do. I treat everyone with respect. Heather and I speak together all the time. It's not a problem for me. I don't have a problem with that. What I do believe is that job creation speaks across party lines. The economy speaks across party lines. In these last 8 years, the number one issue was the economy, and we have not gone after it. So I'm all about the economy. I think that goes across all lines. The African Americans in this state are being held back by a large majority. The minority achievement gap is real, and there's reasons for that. If you took away the charter schools in Baltimore, if you didn't count their test scores or the charter schools in Prince George's, you see how hard it is in those schools to teach. We need these children's zones. We need things. There are ways to get around it. And I think having those answers. Now, how did I come in way in first in a Democratic district? As a fiscal conservative, I'm solution-oriented. I put drug-free children's zones around the rec centers because the drug dealers were there going after the kids. Okay? That passed. That helped. African Americans in my own district understood that I had done a lot of things for them. I'm serious about being a governor for everybody, and I have to have answers for all the problems.
Now, the economic concerns are certainly something that touches everybody, but there are issues that tend to affect particular groups disproportionately high. So, for instance, the women in the audience, I think, might have a greater tie to an issue like abortion, which isn't something that falls within that economic realm. Or the LGBT movement might have a concern over marriage and marriage equality. So could you speak to issues of that nature that don't necessarily fall within that economic answer?
No, I think being a Republican, people always want to tie you to the social issues, and I've always been all about the economy. I haven't dealt with those issues. I think that the voters did very much. They voted on those issues, and now we know how they feel, and that's the law of the land,
Okay. Now, at this time, as we've done with all the other candidates, we'd like to talk a little bit about the Maryland Healthcare Exchange, and we'd like to talk about the vetting that goes into making those programs effective once they hit the ground. Cool. So could you tell us what you would do as governor to make sure that your agenda would come out and it would be bug-free and really go to work for Marylanders right away?
Yeah, as a business person, I want to make sure everything's done correctly. Healthcare is a business, and it has to be done that way. I mean, we have all these insurance companies, we have doctors, we have physicians, it's a big part of our economy here in Maryland, and it's a big need that we have, and it better be done correctly. So the problem with the health insurance exchange is that into the bill, wanting to be the first in the country to do it, they put a little line in the bill that got around the procurement process. The last piece of the procurement process, which is the vetting process, was that it would go before the Board of Public Works. Now, there's only 3 people on that. You have the treasurer, you have the controller, and you have the governor. But they have 1,000 people that are supposed to work with them and go through the vetting and look up any concerns that you have, and statistics that you have, studies that you have, find what could be wrong with it, and a lot happens from that. So it didn't go to the vetting process. The governor will say, yes, but we picked from 10 companies. Yes, but why did you pick the ones, that 1 week after, and I have to say this, folks, 1 week afterwards, they had huge donations to their campaigns. And the Democratic Governors Association suddenly got $326,000 from Maximus. Now, they give to Republicans in other states, okay? So it's not a party thing to them, but they want access, and they're buying favors. I see no reason to choose a company on that, especially when I had shown on the House floor that Maximus had failed in Minnesota, where they were the head contractors for everything, and they failed, and there's lawsuits against them from Minnesota. They failed in Vermont. They failed in California in the child care, healthcare disbursements, and they failed in Maryland. In 2011, the federal government gave money that was to go to the children's health in Baltimore. $370 million went to people that weren't supposed to get it. What about the kids that were supposed to get it? That's in a federal audit. I have all that info. Now, that was Maximus, and that's who we chose to do the rollout. So they try to sound like, oh, it's IBM, because I think polls show more people would be against IBM. No, it's Maximus. They're headquartered out of Northern Virginia. They have an office here in Columbia, and it failed us miserably. And so there we were out of that money. And of the state dollars, it was 125 million of the state dollars and 240 overall. And now we're just going to throw it away? No, we ought to take them to court and get that money back. We really should. So the vetting process is important. It isn't just Board of Public Works, but you have a vetting process where everyone studies this issue and you listen to critiques and everyone finds the best company, the most qualified company.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, we are running up on 20 minutes, and as you well know, you have the opportunity to make a closing statement and one last pitch to the audience. So if you're ready, you've got the floor.
I never know if I'm ready, but I've got the floor. Now, I want to thank all of you. I think it's very important. These issues are important to me. I lead the fight on the House floor on many things. I'm constructive. I went to the Speaker of the House, we're from the same district, and I said, Mike, you're going to realize that I try to be constructive. I take a lot of pride in the fact that Democrats come to me and they say, Delegate George, here's my bill. Let me know if you think this is going to affect business. Will it have a negative effect? People know I know my stuff. I work hard. I work on the Ways and Means Committee. I work on the budgets. I'm on the Education Subcommittee. I work on the education reforms. I'm on Election Law Subcommittee. I was the ranking Republican on the campaign finance reform laws, which unfortunately don't take effect till the next cycle, 2015 on. And I got a lot of things in there that make it a good, level, and transparent process, which is important. I believe in good government. I had the bill that says that if somebody abuses their office for monetary gain, such as Jack Johnson did in Prince George's County, that they should lose their pensions. We pay them back what they paid into it, but they shouldn't get pension for life. And that polled at about 90%. The legislature didn't like the bill. I don't know why. I guess, I'm not going to say, but I believe in good government. I believe in good government, and the campaign finance laws to the election laws all the way through, and the way the process to the vetting, the way it's supposed to work. And I think you're going to find that about me. I've been vetted. The Speaker of the House and many people came after me in order to try to protect him. Said a lot of terrible things, not the Speaker himself, but people did. And it was found not to be true, much of it. I've kept a good life, a clean life. I'm proud of my family. I'm proud of my children and my grandchildren. And I want a good life for everybody. I really do. I was brought up in this state, school in this state, done a lot of volunteer work in this state, and I love Maryland. I'm not a businessman who's going to say, hey, I'm going to leave. I couldn't do that. I am not a career politician. I did not plan to be a delegate. I did not aspire to be a delegate. I did not aspire to be a governor. This is service. Right now, my wife is visiting my daughter with a grandbaby, and I would love to be there. It's sacrifice all the way. But I promise you this, it's because I care, and I'm going to give 100% to find the right solutions to help all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.